Good evening. It's Friday, March the 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am your host, Sean Forrester, Chief Educational Ambassador for District 48 of Toastmasters International. And this is a recording of my Pathways Working Session, a DTM project that I've been working on for the last 4 months, in which I held sessions both in person and online for each of the 5 divisions that we have in our District 48. As you can see from this agenda, I cover a number of items over a 2-hour period to introduce those who are less familiar with Pathways as an education system and Basecamp as the software upon which Pathways runs, to teach people a little bit about these 2 tools so that they can feel more comfortable as they begin their new journeys in Pathways. So we'll try to cover all of these items over a 2-hour period. Before we dig into the software and Pathways itself, I'm going to go to the next item, which is the homepage of District 48. It's district48.org. And I want to draw your attention to 2 menu items that we have on the website. The first one is this one called Pathways. And if I hover over the Pathways, you can see there are 3 menu items, actually a 4th one if you click on the word Pathways. And one of the newest items to be added to the list is this second one, Pathways Resources, which I'll click now. And it takes you to a new page that we've set up over the course of the last 8 months or so, in which I worked with a number of Toastmasters in the district, and we collected up resources that represent some of the best information that's available on Pathways and Basecamp from all the other districts around the world in Toastmasters International. These resources, many of them have been produced by individual Toastmasters and represent some of the best tools and information that we can gather from those various sources. We were one of the last districts to go live with Pathways, and so as a result, we have the benefit of resources that have been produced over the last 2 or 3 years in other districts, and the education and experiences that they have had over the last couple of years. And so this is a great way of leveraging our fellow Toastmasters from around the world who are a little ahead of us in their journey with Pathways. So you can see there's information on the Pathways program, on Basecamp, the software system, some helpful articles for new members, forms that are sometimes difficult to find at Toastmasters International, and a couple of external links. And we continue to work on these resources and add new ones as we find them. One of the specific ones that I wanted to show this evening is this first one that's called Level Charts. It's from a gentleman named Mark Snow, who's actually in District 69 in Australia. And I've opened it already on this next tab, so if I click on that, this is a visual representation of the 5 levels that you'll find in each of the paths in the Pathways education system. If I scroll down just a little, I'm going to use level 1 as an example, because all 11 paths have the same 3 projects at level 1. So there are 3 projects. You can see number 1, number 2, number 3. The first one being the icebreaker. Most Toastmasters are familiar. That's usually the first speech that is done by a new member. It's an opportunity for them to do some public speaking and to let people in their club know a little bit about them, and their first chance to use some of the skills that they're observing in their meetings. The second project is a little more involved. It's called Evaluation and Feedback, and it involves actually delivering 2 speeches. The first speech, you get feedback from an official evaluator, and then you can either do the same speech again, or you can write another one and do it on a different topic. But you use the feedback that you received from the first speech to make an improvement on your next speech. And finally, you need to serve in the role of speech evaluator for another member in your club. And this whole project is to teach you to give and receive feedback and to use the feedback given to make improvements in your speeches from one speech to the next. The last one is the researching and presenting. And this project has a speech. You're to pick a topic that you're not familiar with the information. You do the research, and then you prepare and deliver a 5 to 7 minute speech talking about your experiences in doing the research and what you've learned about the topic that you chose. So those 3 projects make up level 1 of any of the 11 paths in the system. And once you've completed those 3 projects, then you submit the level 1 completion request to your base camp management. And once they have reviewed it, then they approve it and you move on to level 2. Levels 2, 3, 4, and 5 are different depending on which path you chose. But this is a great visual to see for those who like to see an overview, a pictorial overview of pathways, to use this resource to get your arms around how the different levels work and what's involved at each one of the levels. So that's a good resource. I'm going to move over now to Toastmasters International, and I've already logged in. So if you hadn't seen it, you would click the login button, and then you'd be giving a username or email and a password in order to get access to the system. This is Toastmasters International, toastmasters.org. And within this is the Basecamp software. You'll find it by going to the menu Pathways and clicking on it. And then usually I direct people to go to Basecamp. Click on this link, go to Basecamp. When you click on that link, you come to what I refer to as the 3 magic doors. So there are 3 boxes here. On the left-hand side is where you choose the path that you want to use in your Pathways education system. As an active Toastmaster, you have the opportunity to get 1 path for no cost. Any additional paths will cost you a $20 one-time fee, $20 US one-time fee. That's if you use the online system itself, which I highly recommend. It's a much more robust system and allows you to use the video, audio, attachments like PDFs and so on that are in the system. There is a way of doing Pathways purely in book form, as we had in the old traditional system. It is an additional $45 for the printing and shipping costs. And unfortunately, not all 11 paths are available in book form. It depends on the language. I think there's about 5 right now for the English language. There is, if you want to do this, you don't need to do this, but I do recommend you consider doing this. You would pick a path by taking the assessment, and this button will take you into the assessment. I'm not going to take time to go through it. But what the assessment basically does is asks you 20 questions or so, 20 to 25 questions. And given your answers to those questions, it will recommend to you 3 of the 11 paths that most closely match the answers that you gave. You can review the information that describes each of those paths that's been recommended for you. And if you don't like any of those 3, you don't have to pick one of those 3. You could pick any of the paths that are in the system, and you can have access to the other 8 below the 3 recommended ones, so you can take a look at the entire system before making your choice. Once you've selected a path, you have basically 30 days to explore it. And if you find that you're not getting as much as you thought you were going to get out of it, you can call Toastmasters and have them switch from the path you chose to another one. You do have to know exactly which one you want to switch to. And again, it has to be done within 30 days. But the experience to go through the assessment is worthwhile, at least the first time, to find which paths may be recommended to you based on the answers. The 3rd magic door over here on the other side is what's referred to as the Navigator. We've never had such a resource as the Navigator, and basically what this is an online user manual on all things Toastmaster. So you'll learn about the different roles in a club meeting, the different roles in your club leadership executive council, the roles at the district level, how the program works, the Pathways program, and all the various experiences that you can have with contests and open houses and the other elements of the DTM award, including being club coach, club mentor, running a speechcraft or youth leadership. So it's a great resource, even if you've been a Toastmaster for a while, just to make sure that you know everything that's available in the program. The button here, when you launch it, will take you to the Navigator, which is an interactive version. There is actually a PDF version of it that's not interactive that you can download to a local computer. And one of the things I would recommend you consider doing is when you get a new member, you hand them a copy of the PDF version so that they can read quickly about all things Toastmaster and get up to speed as quick as possible. Those are the two outside doors to the system, and then the middle door will take you into Basecamp itself. Now, in my case, I belong to two clubs. I belong to the Dunedin Club and the Sterling Toastmaster Club, both of them in Dunedin, Florida. And I bring this to your attention because most of you belong probably to just one club, but if you belong to multiple clubs, it is important that when you complete an award and you're ready to submit it for approval, that you sign into the club that you wish that club to get credit for completing your level. So it's the only time that it matters. When you're just working on projects, it doesn't matter which club you're logged into because your own profile follows you, not the club. However, when you're looking to approve a level, you must make sure the right club is selected before you go into Basecamp, or else your approval request will go to another club, not the one that you intended. So just something to be aware of as you go into the system. I'm going to click on Go to Basecamp at this point, and we're going to go inside and take a little tour inside of Basecamp. So here we are at the home page of Basecamp. And one of the first things I'd like to share with you is that these menus on the top, you hover over them, but you have to select or click on the drop-down portion for it to activate. I would recommend the first time that you go into the software that you run this check compatibility. When you do run this little program, it's going to check your system to make sure things are turned on or off correctly. So it's a good thing to do when you first get started so that you know that your system's set up for the best possible experience. I also recommend that you take a tour the first time. All this will do is bring up little comment windows all over the page and give you a brief description of everything that you're seeing on the home page before you start diving into the software itself. Those are the first two things that I would recommend that you do. One trick that I have learned along the way is that if you are ever finding yourself in a place where you aren't sure how you got there or what you're looking at, and you're kind of lost in the system, I would recommend that you go and click on this icon, which is on the top left-hand corner of every page in the system. And when you click that, you will return to this home page no matter where you were in the system. So this is a good way of coming right back to home. And then from there, you can try to wind your way down a different path, no pun intended, to get to the resource that you were really trying to get to. So that's a great learning or good thing to have in your back pocket in case you get lost in the system. If we scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see on the screen that there are 5 blue buttons. These are the major elements of the Basecamp system. I'm going to just briefly touch on the third and fourth one, my feedback and my badges, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those this evening. You won't tend to use those very much. My feedback is a system that allows you to request and receive feedback from fellow members. So let's say I was working on my body language and I did a speech at my club this week, and I want to reach out to a couple of people that I know well and ask for their feedback above and beyond the full official evaluation that I received. So I could go into that system, find my user members that I want to speak with, and I could write them a comment and it'll show up in their inbox inside of the system, and they can respond to you with their feedback. The other one, my badges, I'll show you a little later the badges themselves, but it's an area where you can see all the badges that have been given to you either by the system or by fellow users at your club. And that's just a place where you can view those things. There's a number of different badges in the system, and we'll show some of that later. I'm going to cut this part 1 off and begin part 2 in just a moment.